Hi everybody, this is Steve Ludwig, host of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture at PlanetLudwig.com. Here's an interview we did with Butch Patrick, a.k.a. Eddie Munster, on March 4th, 2014. Show number 30. To hear the entire show, check out the menu at PlanetLudwig.com. And now, please enjoy the interview. And everyone, what a pleasure it is to welcome loved by millions, really an iconic figure from our childhood and from, we all know and love Butch Patrick from the Munsters. He, of course, played Eddie Munster. Check out Munsters.com for one of the greatest websites you'll find on the internet. Butch Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction.
Butch, how does it feel to mean so much to so many people? Isn't that a loaded question? But you mean so much to so many people that grew up watching the Munsters. Does that ever hit you like, wow, I'm Butch Patrick, and I was on one of the greatest shows ever?
You know, it's. I've been very lucky. It's funny. I thought about that the other day because I was doing a little pilot for a friend of mine who helped me get sober, and we were talking about how far-reaching the show is and how many people it affected, and I'm putting together this 50th anniversary book, which is all stories of people that have shared with me about what the Munsters meant to them. So literally, you know, when you can be an actor and you can go to work and do your job and you know, have a great time doing it, and then have 50 years later still have effect on new people that weren't even born when the show was done, and making their, you know, putting a smile on their face on a daily basis, it's a pretty cool thing.
Butch, you mentioned about being clean and sober. You're a CSI, clean and sober individual. First of all, congratulations on that. And can we talk a couple of minutes about your sobriety?
Sure, not a problem. November 21st, 2010, I entered a Oasis Treatment Center in Anaheim, California. I had some friends who had found it, and they suggested that maybe I might want to seek some help. Some friends and professional people as well. It wasn't an intervention, but it was a group consciousness that something needed to be done, and I agreed. I had been pondering it and tippy-toeing around the problem for probably the last 5 years prior to that, and then finally made the plunge. And I kind of went in for alcohol, but everything else fell into place. So now I've been drug and alcohol free for coming up on 3 years and almost 4 months.
Congratulations, really, Butch. I mean, that's probably, I don't know how you feel about it. That's probably the greatest accomplishment in your life, besides your professional life. Really.
Well, you know what it was, you know, growing up in the 60s and then compounding that, growing up in Hollywood in the 60s where everything was available and the whole social consciousness of the country was, pre-love and the summer of love and get high and make love not war. That whole mentality was everybody was running around just getting stoned, and psychedelics were very prevalent, and and I was a part of that whole culture. And some people just allowed it to become a lifestyle, and I was one of those people.
Yeah. We're speaking, everyone, of course, with Butch Patrick, who played one of the all-time most beloved TV characters, Eddie Munster. And Butch, I love the title of your book, Eddie Munster, a.k.a. Butch Patrick, rather than the other way around. I am assuming you get called Eddie more often than you wish you did.
It doesn't really bother me too much, but it was funny when the gentleman with the pilot the other day, he did the intro, and he goes, because when I checked in, to recovery, it was Patrick It was my real name, Patrick Lilly. So he said, I know him as Patrick Lilly, you know him as Butch Patrick, and the world knows him as Eddie Munster. So it was kind of a three-tier situation. But as long as you're known, right, as long as somebody knows your name, whether it's Eddie Munster or Butch Patrick, I'm okay with it.
That's right. You've either way, you've meant something to many, many people. I want everybody to know, too, Butch, that those in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, you're going to be at Monkeys Con, March 14th through the 16th in Secaucus.
Yes, I am. I've done a few of those in the past. They just started doing these Monkey Cons recently, and I did the Monkeys Christmas show back in 1967, 68, and as a 14-year-old kid, it was one of the highlights of my teenage years, no doubt, because I had missed meeting the Beatles when they came on the Munsters set. But the Monkeys TV show was hugely popular, and I was the right age to be a fan of them. And then I also went to school with the Cowsills, so I had the Cowsills in high school, and then the Monkeys doing a Christmas episode. So I really look
Wow.
forward to these annual conventions.
Wow, Butch, I had Bob Kelsel on the show a few months ago, and Susan Kelsel was coming on in April. So how about that for a small world?
Oh, yeah. Susan was there, John, Barry, and Paul. I went to
Hmm.
school with.
You mentioned from your book, I love the chapter "Close Encounters of the Beatles Kind," and you just alluded to that in your book, Eddie Munster, aka Butch Patrick. Could you share with our listeners your almost encounter with the Beatles?
Yeah, I basically came into work one day and they were told me that the day before the Beatles had stayed on the studio for security reasons in dressing rooms. I guess the hotel situation was such that they felt it would be safer to be behind studio gates, and they were Munster fans, and they came and saw the Munster set. I was off that day apparently, and I believe that one of them actually stayed in my dressing room, as I had a very large dressing room next to Marlon Brando. Which was always used as it was also used as my schoolroom as well.
But you
And
did.
I missed out a meeting there, but I got fairly close to Louise Harrison, George's older sister, years ago. I've known her for about 25 years now, and we worked together on a lot of projects. I've had a chance to see some very cool home movies that very few people in the world have probably had a chance to have the pleasure of seeing, of George growing up with Louise.
Well, yeah, Louise does the foreword to your book, Eddie Munster, aka Butch Patrick.
Yeah.
How did you first meet Louise, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in Orlando at a Hard Rock Cafe doing a promotion with Barry Williams and the Brady Bunch, and the gentleman came over and said, Louise Harrison, George's sister, would like to meet you. Would you like to meet her? And I said, absolutely, and went over, sat down, and spent the rest of the afternoon talking about Beatles stories with her. And she happened to live in Sarasota while I was living in St. Pete Beach, and it was about an hour's drive, and I would go down and visit her on a regular basis, and then I started getting involved with her help. It was called Drop-In, Determined Recovery of Our Planet, that she had going to help environmental causes, and I became one of her directors.
Butch, I met you at one of the Beatles Fest. Actually, that's where I bought your book, and you were so kind enough to autograph it for me. Now, you've teased me a little bit here. You said you saw some home movies that most people haven't gotten the chance to see. Is there anything you can share with us of George Harrison home movies?
Not really. It was just fun to see the family unit and see Louise she was like 10 years older.
Yeah.
And she had moved. She was the first person to come to America, and George came and visited her when he was 17, and then went back and was still with the Beatles. The Beatles were still, about a 2-year-old group at that time. I don't think they came to America until '64, and when they did, they'd been together about 4 years, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
She was instrumental in bringing the Beatles over here. She did a lot of the footwork to get airplay.
Yeah, I think George actually visited her actually before the Beatles came over. If I know my history,
That's right.
But yeah,
And
we're
her
speaking.
house, the house
Yep.
became her bed and breakfast. It was funny. It was in Illinois, and she had turned it after she'd sold it. They turned it into a museum called A Hard Day's Night, which I've spent the night there several times. It was very cool.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Listeners, please visit the website, monsters.com. And Butch, this is your website. I mean, you're pretty much the keeper of the flame now of the Monsters legacy. Monsters.com is such a very cool website. Butch, do you still keep in touch with Pat Priest?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I speak to her on a regular basis. We're going to be doing 3 shows this year together, and whenever I get the chance, I talk to her a lot. I try to steer some business whenever I can, and with the 50th anniversary, it helps for us both to be together with the Munster coach and the Dragula to really have a Munsters reunion of sorts.
Very cool. When is this book coming out? Bruce book, Butch. When is this book coming out? You mentioned the 50 year. Yeah.
The Munster Memory book, I'm shooting for September 24th. We'll be taking pre-orders at that point. I'm going to have a mock-up, and I'm going to have the basic first issue ready to go. And as far as printing, we're searching around for publishers right now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 100 pre-order special limited edition books that will go to the collector, the high-end collectors for $100. And then after that, we're going to make more of the $50 coffin table book. I call it a coffin table as opposed to a coffee table.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm sure we can find all this information on monsters.com when the time comes.
Yes, absolutely. What you can do, actually, any of your listeners, we have over 700 stories right now, but I'm taking in more, and the more stories, the better, and they can send their stories to monstermemories.com.
monstermemories.com. And everyone, that's going to be on our links page, too, on the website, Planet Ludwig. Monstermemories.com. Very excellent. Very cool. Speaking of Monster Memories, can you give me a quick thumbnail of each of your wonderful castmates, like Fred Gwynne, for instance?
Sure. Well, Fred and Al came as a team from Car 54. Fred was very, was kind of the low-key, the behind-the-scenes kind of a guy. I mean, he was very, very good at what he did, but he wasn't over-the-top character like Grandpa was. Al Lewis was a vaudevillian, and he was theater and, very, very outgoing, where Fred was more of a introvert. He was just more quiet and subdued, but both were really, really talented, and they played well off of each other. As a team, they were first rate, right up there with Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy. Yvonne DiCarlo, she was a bona fide movie star, the biggest name in the cast, literally. A lot of people thought she couldn't do comedy. She pulled it off remarkably well, and I think her Lily Munster character was instrumental in the success of the show. Myself, I just played a regular kid, but I played myself, and it seemed to work. And then we had two Marilyns. We had Beverly Owen play the first 13 episodes as Marilyn Munster, and then she left the show to go back to New York, where she was in love and homesick. And she actually left to marry the gentleman that created Sesame Street. And then Pat Priest stepped in, and she had been a Hollywood starlet. But a lot of the interesting things that I find about Pat Priest was that her mother was Treasurer of the United States in the Eisenhower administration, long before women were like taking cabinet posts in government.
Yeah, talk about ahead of one's time.
Yeah. So we had an interesting view, and then the show itself was very kid-friendly because it was produced by the people that did Leave It to Beaver for 6 years. So it was okay to be the only kid on the lot and the only kid on the Munsters, because people around me, I was surrounded by people that were very good with children, and all the cast members of the Munsters had kids of their own.
I think, Butch, why the Munsters is so beloved. Let's see if you agree with this. They were... They taught us to never judge a book by its cover. The Munsters were regular people. I mean, they didn't act nutty. Oh, well, Grandpa, perhaps, but the character of Grandpa. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Herman was a heck of a great father. And you kids, the kids in the show respected him. And you think that's part of the appeal all these years later? It's just it's a very good family unit.
Well, you got to remember, Leave It to Beaver. The scripts and the producers had a very solid base of family unit there with the Beef, and they did the same thing, except we were in makeup, and a lot of the gags that the comedy writers could write a lot funnier scripts, because the same situations that would be presented to a normal family when it was presented to the Munsters became very comical and hilarious simply by the nature of the double entendre type jokes that would be available because we were monsters. It would be like, day was night, night was day, and up was, down was up and up was down. Simple like stuff like that, which allowed writers to write very funny scripts, not only for the Munsters, but for other shows that I did, like Mr. Ed, My Favorite Martian, I Dream of Jeannie, and shows of that nature. Shows like that had great comic fodder with the writers being able to write funny, non-reality based stuff.
Yeah, Butch, my goodness, you were, of course, everyone loves you from the Munsters, but you really were in quite a few shows from the 60s and into the early 70s, huh?
Yeah, my first series was General Hospital, my first interview I got, and then I got a movie, and then I got a commercial for Corn Flakes, and then after that I did the Real McCoys for a year with Walter Brennan and Richard Crenna, great stuff, and then I did the Munsters as my third series in 64, and I started acting in 60, and then I did A Year of My Three Sons. I did, I think I did 17 episodes over a few years.
Right.
And then Lidsville came around in the summer of 71, which was my fourth series. And that all happened in about an 11-year period. And in between, I did 17 movies and about 60 commercials with a lot of guest starring roles as well.
Yeah, you were in Lidsville in the early 70s. And Butch, thankfully, you're clean and sober. I'm right with you. I've been clean and sober since '85. But some of the writers of Lidsville, I think they were kind of tripping out there. That was a crazy, cool, psychedelic kind of show, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Sid and Marty were definitely. Marty was the producer and the businessman type of guy, and Sid was the creative genius. I think a lot of psychedelics were absorbed, and the shows themselves were great, and it was a fun show to do. They treated me very well. Charles Nelson Riley, very funny guy, and this was early in his career. when, long before he became a Max Payne staple and the Ghost of
Right.
Mrs. Muir and all the other stuff that he did. But the CNR was a very funny guy.
Yeah, boy, that must have been a thrill to work with him. Were you treated pretty well, even though you were usually the younger kid on the lot? Did everyone kind of, take you under their wing and make sure you were okay? And did you have a pretty decent experience with most of the people you worked with?
I had a great time. And not only was I the only kid on the Munsters, I was the only kid on the lot. There was no other series going on, and the movies, occasionally there would be a movie shoot that would have some children, but most of the time I was on my own, which I liked. I enjoyed exploring. Whenever I didn't have to be on stage 32 and I had some time to kill, it was a great place to go hang out because every soundstage you would see, as soon as they would finish one movie, the next movie would be starting to be built, and I would love to go in and see them build the sets and start the process, and that was a lot of fun. And then the existing series, my uncle used to supply horses. So I'd see my uncle a lot up on the wagon train in the Virginian set bringing horses in, and I just the other day met Tim Conway. I was talking with Tim Conway, and I took him a photo.
One of my favorites.
I took him a photo, and he wrote me a very nice picture. But I said, "You remember me coming on your set because I used to come back to the lagoon at McHale's Navy and visit Ernest Borgnine." And he goes, "I remember you vividly." And he goes, "You did a great job, and you were always a nice, polite kid." And he wrote me a very nice picture. He says, "I love your work." And coming from Tim Conway, that was a huge compliment.
Oh, my goodness. Tim Conway, one of the all-time greats. Butch, when you think
absolutely.
of it, when you think of it, all you've been through, you, in addition to, giving so much pleasure to so many people, you and people that grew up and went through the 60s and 70s, you're an historian for the rest of us. I mean, you're talking about the Munster Memories book, but I mean, I think there's even another book in you, like the way I use your time, Butch, but there's another book in you that just writing all this stuff down and keeping it for posterity. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much that you have inside of you that so many people could learn from just the industry.
What's funny is, like, sometimes when I go to a speaker meeting and I talk to people, because one of the things, as you know, is to stay sober, is to help other people get their sobriety, and it's a full circle thing. But I forget sometimes all the things that I've done until somebody will ask me a question, and I'll answer that question, which will lead to another fact that I've forgotten about or I had been hidden in my memory bank. And I did, and I've done a lot of things, and outside the business too. I was very lucky. My stepfather was a baseball player with the Angels and the Washington Senators and the Yankees and the Cubs. So I had the chance to go, to the Major League Baseball parks and be in father and son games and do that kind of a thing during the Munsters. When I got a little older and I got my car, I used to go to the drag races with the family that had been in the funny car, and I loved drag racing. So I was going with all these A-list type people. I wasn't really aware of how lucky I really was at the time, and I thought everybody had these really killer lives. But now in hindsight, I look back and I go, I really was very lucky. And I mean, I met Walt Disney, I met Evel Knievel, I met Rod Serling. These are like the big people in my life that were. I did the only movie for Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones was only featured animated movie for 2 years, and I got to work with every voiceover. Biggie from Mel Blanc to June Foray to Hans Connery to Dawes Butler, and then
oh my goodness,
doing the Monkees itself with the real guys for a whole week during the Christmas show, which today is like one of their best episodes.
Oh, is it ever? Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been a very lucky guy, and not only was the episode a cool show, I was in it a lot. I mean, I was like a featured player in it. I was very excited that Melvin Vandersnoot was like the star of the show with the Monkees.
Mm-hmm. May I ask you your stepfather's name, Butch?
I'm sorry?
Your stepfather's name?
Oh, his name was Ken Hunt. He was Mickey Mantle's roommate in the late 50s as a rookie, came to the Angels in the expansion after Jim Fregosi, and then basically in his rookie year he had 24 home runs and 84 RBIs and was really a great player. Unfortunately, he dislocated his shoulder during a game and never really recovered, and it happened to be his throwing arm.
Mm-hmm. I know the name Ken Hunt. I mean, we're just about the same age, Butch. Yeah, absolutely. Ken Hunt was a good, good ball player.
Yeah, he was. And he's very next to Roger Maris, and him and Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris were the last generation of the hard drinking, go out all night, come to the ballpark the next day, and still play good ball.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. Butch, before we say goodbye, a couple of things I'd like to ask you. We have a really big listenership in Australia, and one of our Australian fans had emailed me. I know the answer because I read your book, Eddie Munster, a.k.a. Butch Patrick, but where is the original Woof Woof? Interesting story.
I got the original Wolf Whip and the original Stingray bicycle that George Barris and Von Butch built from a collector about 2 months ago. I had met him 30 years ago when he bought my original Wolf Whip doll from me and restored it, and we sold 93 dolls over the years, and he finally he got older and he decided that he couldn't keep everything, and he wanted me to help him sell it. And as it turns out, I wound up buying the bike, the Wolf Whip back, and the coffins he sleeps in, and the wardrobe, and the whole 9 yards. But listen to this, in Australia, but you mentioned in Australia, I actually send cars to Brisbane to sell. I buy muscle cars and send them down to a company called California Image, .com.aus. And it's funny because my motorcycle, my Harley Davidson, Grandpa Munster-inspired bike with the Spot 50 bar and everything is down there in Brisbane, and I'm going to be going down there in June to sell it.
Wow. All right. Now, I know our fans in Australia are listening, so wow, that's great. You'll be there in June in Brisbane.
Yep.
Excellent.
Image.
Love one of the pictures in your book. The original jacket, what was that you wore as Eddie Munster. I love on the label inside. Can you tell our listeners it didn't say Eddie Munster, but what it said in there? Do you remember?
Little boy.
Little boy.
Little
yeah.
boy. That was before. See, that wasn't actually the Eddie Munster suit. That was a ring bearer suit that they had made, and they just stuck that on me to try the screen test. And then after that happened, that was only the jacket. I actually have an original suit too. And after that happened, they then made my own Butch Patrick outfits that were mine.
Mm. Well, Butch, I can't thank you enough. Everyone, we've been speaking obviously with Butch Patrick, and check out Munsters.com. Also, share your memories, everyone, to MunsterMemories.com. This info will be on our links page on the website. And Butch, with all of your great things that you've given to us over the years, in my way of thanking you, please stay clean and sober, Butch, because you are a treasure to so many of us, and you're loved by millions of people you'll never meet. But believe me, so many people are with you, and we wish you all the best in your life. And we'll keep in touch through Munsters.com. Munsters.com.
Please do. Thank you very, very much. And I'll take that advice, and I plan on it. I have it tattooed on my shoulder blade, my sobriety day, so I plan on staying sober till the day I die.
That's great, Butch. All the best to you, best of health. Thanks so much, Butch.